Well, we've come over today to Cummeragunja, and we're at the old school where most of the kids on Cummeragunja went to be educated, and I attended this school myself in the early 1930s, coming from across the river, the Victorian side of the river, to get to this school. I remember quite a few of the children that came to school here. I knew most of them, and sadly today I can count on one hand the children that went in when I came to this school. Well, I was living on the banks of the Murray, which is just over there, and we had a house there for a time before grandfather went to Melbourne. We lived with him, and then later on we stayed and lived over there. So most of the time. I remember Cummeragunja in those days was a lovely place to be. I knew most of the people on Cummeragunja and was related to about 70% of them. And most of the houses had picket fences around their houses and beautiful gardens, and it was a lovely place. We're standing at the Cummeragunja School. The old school's been here since my grandfather William Cooper. I don't think he attended this school because he was educated at Maloga. He was taken to Maloga at the age of 14, never been to school up the land, and the manager of Maloga took a liking to him and taught him how to read and write. And but my mother came to this school. They used to walk from the Barmer Lakes every day to this school. Her and her siblings, which was about 4 or 5. And they got a good education. There was Grandpa James was the teacher, and he taught them well. I think they're a bit better off than those people that weren't on the mission. The kids that went to school away from here. I think they got a better education because Grandpa James was pretty particular in what he taught and the like, so yeah, they could read and write like wouldn't believe. I had great memories of this school, but I knew most of the kids and kept in touch with them over the years, and a lot of memories about the people and about the school. The teachers were very strict. Gladys Austin was my teacher, and she was the daughter of the headmaster. So if you played up, you went into the headmaster, and he had a cane so long, and it stung because I got it a few times.
And how did you get from living over the other side of the river to here?
Well, most people in those days had boats of their own. They weren't big boats, but they used them for fishing and crossing the river. And that's how I got across the river to school, was by boat.
Yeah. And did you go home for lunch?
I used to go home a fair bit, but one of the chaps that had a camp on the riverbank near the school, he would give me lunch sometime and didn't have to go home.
And what about any, you were telling before that yarn about the boat coming past. What are some of your memories that you have of the river and playing at the river? Because you're saying that that's sort of where you were playing as a child?
Well, the steamers used to come by. They'd tow the barges up from Echuca up into the forest and leave them there. and they'd strap the logs onto this barge, about 6 or 8 logs or more, and they'd drift the logs back to the mill. They had a sawmill in Echuca, and the logs were then cut up in this mill, store mill.
And what about that time that the boat come past and you got that big cod? Can you tell that story?
Bevan Nichols and I were playing along the river on the other side, and one of the steamers had just gone past and made waves, which they did. And we were walking along the bank and spot this cod. He was washed up between onto a sandbar on the river, and he couldn't get out. But we got him out, took him home.
Have a good feed that night?
Oh yeah, yeah, that was great. Yeah. It didn't happen too often. But a lot of stories I remember from being here and growing up here on the other side and on the mission. Great memories, you know. I often sit down and think about all the old people that I knew on Cummera, all the relations that have gone, and the water was clear, and you know, that's all we drank was river water, and it was the best water you could get, I think. You'd be in a boat and going along and you wanted a drink, you'd scoop a handful up and we'll lay down on your stomach and drink it out of the river. Yeah, it was really good.
Did you do a lot of fishing?
I didn't, but I saw as many cod as anyone because my stepfather used to be a fisherman and he fished for the market in Melbourne. And what they'd do, they'd set lines and catch the cod and yellow belly until they had enough, and then they'd have a cleaning day, put them in a horse and cart or an old ute, but by then there wasn't many cars, and take them to Picola train station. They'd put them on the little motor train there, which would take them to America, and catch the train from Tocumwal through to Melbourne the next morning. They'd be at the market next morning. And they were all packed in leaves, gum leaves, and wet bags. There was no ice around in those days. And that's what they packed it in, these bags and leaves, gum leaves.
Can you talk about the foot races that were held?
The football races, they were picnics every Christmas. Mr. Payne would come out and Uncle Eddie Briggs and all the people would turn up with their kids and they'd have foot races and Christmas trees. They had the lot. And all the kids used to look forward to Christmas because every Christmas there was a Christmas tree and the like. Yeah. Very good.
Did you ever, what about the gift, the Cummeragunja gift?
Well, that was run, wasn't run at Christmas, but they had a back to Cummera and they had the Cummeragunja gift and it was run, the heats were run and there was 4 of us left in the runoff, in the final. And the 2 boys, there was Mick Morgan and there was Len Jackson, myself and Kevin Russell. And it was run Mick Morgan and Len Jackson ran a dead heat. And they ran it again and they ran another dead heat. And I ran second to them. So it was a great day. Oh, look, the people and the kids had terrific fun. There was always something on, a concert, or there was a dance or something else, you know. There was a meeting, and they ran things all the time, and everybody came along and enjoyed themselves. Cummera was a great place. I think they were very frustrated with what they just wanted to run their lives and tell them what to do and when to do it, and go to get permission to go out and work, get permission to come home and move back to your family and that sort of thing. Get permission to have relatives up for Christmas, and it just went on, and that's why the people got tired of it and sick of it. And when they had the opportunity to go, they went. Some went by boat across the river, and some by horse and cart, some with an old car or old ute, and they went around the other side onto the Victorian side.
And so did they, when they left here, whereabouts on the Victorian side did some of them first
Well,
go?
they camped around where I lived over the other side. There was a family, there was about a dozen families of Aboriginals on the other side of the river. And they just camped in the bush around us because we knew all of them, and we used to go down to the camp and have a yarn and that sort of thing. And they put in a winter there, and everybody was sick. The women, it wasn't very nice for them, and the children, they were sick, and so they got sick and tired of camp life, and they went to Marubna and Shepparton on the flats, which was a bit better. They had the hospital close to them, and they were all together, and they were happy. They were told what to do, when to do it, and that type of thing. And that's why the people revolted and walked off the mission in 1939.
Who sort of instigated that? Who came in?
Well, there's Uncle Jack Patton came here, and most of the oldies know Uncle Jack. He talked to the people and gave a talk and told them the best thing they could do was walk off the mission, which they did. And I think today he was right when he said the best thing they could do was walk off. And a lot of those people are pretty well off today.
So the house that you lived across the river in, what kind of house was that?
Oh, it was a house that grandfather had built, and he was in his early 70s at this stage. It was a house with a tin roof, galvanised iron, and the rest of it was what they built with was bag. They'd open the bags out and put the bags around the outside and calcimine them to keep the weather off them. And that was the type of, it was a hut.
Yeah, so it was just like a one-room hut?
Well, this was about 3 rooms, or 3 rooms and a skillion on the back of it. So it wasn't that big, but he fitted us in all right.
So when did Uncle William leave the mish?
Well, grandfather, William Cooper, left the mission very early in the piece. He had 7 children, and he left the mission with those children. They were of school age, and he went to the Barmer Lakes and set himself up there with his family. And that would have been in the early 1900s when he did that. And from there he moved to Mulwala, and he set himself up in a business, a fish and chip shop. And he used to go out and catch the fish himself, and Yeah, it would have been early 1900s, I think. I don't know the reason why or where he left to come and back to the Victorian side of the river here. I don't know where he went to from there, but most of my mother and siblings went to school in Yarrawonga. And I think that he probably came back when they left school. I'm not sure.
And then is that when he built the house over?
And yes, he would have been of retiring age at this time, and probably that was the time he built the house for his retirement. I was brought back to live with grandfather as a very young baby. My sisters, I had two sisters, and one was 4 and the other one was 2 years old, so it would have been very early in my life. Yeah.
And how long were you living here on the river?
Well, I lived there after living in Melbourne with William Cooper and his wife, Nanny Sarah. I lived with them for another 3 years after living over the other side of the river for about 5 years. And that would have been 8 or 9 years in all.
Yeah. And so did Uncle William sort of make you go to school? Did he make sure that you went to school?
Well, when I wasn't at school age when he left here. He left in 1933 and went to Melbourne. But when I went to school in Melbourne, yes, he made sure you went to school, all right.
Yeah. Why do you think he was so passionate about education?
I think he thought education was everything that his people needed to get out of the life that they had, to go out and live not only on the mission, but they could go anywhere if they had education. It was everything to not only the grown-ups but the children too. Well, it wasn't only important for grandfather, but it was important for all of the old people to come back to Cummera no matter where they were. They wanted to come home. They called it home. And they wanted to come back and be buried here. Things have changed now because a lot of the people that have left Cummera have married, gone into towns, had their families in town, and they were buried where their families are, so that the families don't have to travel to Cummera to see their grave. So very important for the old people here. I think that those people should never be forgotten. I think that the young people could have more interest in their families and their grandfathers and grandmothers and that type of thing, because as I say, I knew them all, I think of them all the time, and if you don't know them, you lose track of them. And that's something I've never done, because Mum always guided me in that way, that I knew everybody.
Do you think it's important to come back to country and live away?
Yeah, I think so. Because if you don't know your country and you can't go back to it if you don't know it. And I always like to come back to Cummera because of being at school here and all the kids that I grew up with, and all the people I knew. It's like coming home to me. Well, Cummeragunja means our home. and that's the way it should be. Because I think that the old people had to have somewhere to call home, and places like Cummeragunja they remember as being their home when they grow up.